I'm Keela Hall, CEO and co-founder of Katie Hall Foundation. Join me as I take you on a journey that will uncover and discover what success looks like from 8 different individuals that are groundbreaking leaders in their respective professions. So, how did you do it? Those are the type of questions most people on the road to success ask themselves. We are going to get an up-close view of what it takes to make it and the thought process behind that question. What does it mean to be successful? Let's be clear. What you are in store for are representatives from several different backgrounds and life experiences that have come together to share their same undoubted passion, tenacity, and leadership skills, which is proven to be their common bond. So relax and enjoy the documentary. Alessandra Lewis has spent more than 20 years on camera. She is a real class act and a force to be seen in the field of journalism. She has covered news across our nation, and we are grateful to have her here with us in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. You've been in TV for 20 years, then you're young, so talk to us about what has kept you in TV and how have you stayed fresh?
I feel like it's a challenge every day, and thank you for saying that. My career on television started a very long time ago, and I started doing modeling and acting and commercials and voiceover work, and then eventually as I got older it transitioned into news. And that has kept me interested and engaged for a long time, and I think it will for a long time to come because it's so different and it's so challenging, and it forces you to think outside the box because technology is changing. So it's no longer enough just to be that presence and to deliver the news on television. You have to tweet, and you have to be on Facebook, and you have to meet the viewer where they are. And you have to evolve. And so that's why I think it never gets boring. And that's why you can do it, it's been 20 years, and I feel like I can do it for 20 more, if not longer, because it's never the same. From day to day, from year to year, it is an evolving industry.
And so how has the integration of social media, since you brought that up, like how has that been a challenge and also a very positive for the news?
Sure. Well, it's a challenge for me personally because I'm a private person. So if it wasn't for my job, I wouldn't be on Facebook. I wouldn't be on Instagram. I share myself because I have to, because it's a part of my job. So for me, diving within and being like, okay, get out of yourself and do this because it's important, for your job, like I said, to meet the viewer where they are. But it's great because it's instant access. I do breaking news in the morning. So when something is happening, before I'm ever on air, the very first thing I do is I send out a tweet. So that way it's already there from the viewers. And then maybe 30 seconds to a minute later, I'm live on television. Then I'm going to Facebook and I'm putting that video on Facebook, because a lot of times the first thing you wake up, you tell me, what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I go to Facebook.
You go to Facebook.
Yeah, I do, truly.
The first thing, you need to find out what you missed when you were sleeping. And so that's where we have to meet them there.
So I want to turn back the clock for a moment. So let's go back to when you were in college. You went to University of Miami.
Yes.
And when you were at University of Miami, did you see yourself here? So many years later, did you see yourself here? And if you did see yourself here, what were some of the greatest challenges that you have experienced between college and getting yourself to where you are right now?
It has been an absolute roller coaster. I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give for, college, freshman, junior, whether you're trying to get into this field, is that you really have to love it. You have to love it with all of your heart. And I know they've probably heard that a million times over, but it's true, because when you find yourself, my first market, I was in Lafayette, Louisiana, hurricanes Ike and Gustav hit, and I slept on the floor of a sheriff's station for 8 days on a cot covering hurricane. That's life as a journalist. It's not glamorous, it's not fun. You are challenged, you are pulled in so many different directions. And some of those stories do go home with you. You have to learn how to separate and to give your heart and to be empathetic. And, that's how you are a great storyteller. You have to care, but you also have to separate and know that, this is work and my home life is important. So having that balance is something that took a long time.
Janet Fan is a lot of things. I have so much respect for the underdog that comes out on top. From homeless teenager to woman football player to technology guru and a leading woman in STEM.
In high school, I had a mentor at Stadium High School. His name is Mr. Neendorf, my accounting teacher, and he knew a little bit about kind of the challenges that I was going through with my parents in terms of not really trusting what it is that I'm doing. Like, why are you coming home at 10:30 on a Thursday night, like after a game? Like, because that's not how it was in Vietnam.
But how old were you at this point? You said you were in high school, so how old were
Right.
you?
So at Stadium High School, around 15, and
So they're probably being protective,
Yes.
loving parents and wanting to know where their baby girl is at, right?
Yes, yes. That's the purpose. But from a teenager point of view, it's like, well, I am getting 4.0s. I'm very involved with the school. I'm giving back to the community. Why are you not believing what I'm doing? Because it's just not the way it works in Vietnam. You know, I even had my mentor call my parents and say, hey, Janet is going to the Future Business Leaders of America state conference with us. You know, it's an overnight thing. And he was explaining, it's just like this, but it's like this constant having to prove myself, right? And eventually we didn't see eye to eye so much that halfway through my senior year, I moved out of my house.
Now you are a founder of a nonprofit to help young girls in technology.
Yeah.
And you're also on a board at University of Washington. You're also on a board at the Tukwila schools. So how have you used your past to be able to leverage your future?
Whenever I'm doing anything, I always ask, well, what's the bigger picture and what's the purpose? And then I plan for that. So all of, like, even when I was in high school with projects, I always wanted to go above and beyond to deliver the projects. And my best friend and I, we would always team up, and people would hate it when once we presented, they're like, oh. And I'm like, well, we're not doing it to like one up anybody. We're doing it because we want to make sure that we're showing like what we can do best.
What type of inspiration do you give to these young girls when you're speaking with them about the importance of being a leader, right? And then being a leader in technology, and then being almost a leader of yourself more than anything else is what I hear when you speak.
The one thing that I tell them is just stay true to yourself and what you believe in. And if there's something that you're being asked to do that doesn't quite resonate with you, then challenge it, right? And as long as you have good work ethic, stay true to yourself, high integrity, then I think you can definitely persevere.
Women in uniform is a hot topic for Discovering You. One of the brightest women in uniform I know started her career out in the military and has grown in Seattle Police Department as a force to reckon with. No other than Deputy Chief of Police, Carmen Bess. And so I want to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
You were promoted to Deputy Chief of Police just 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago and 2 months ago,
Yeah.
right?
Not that anybody's counting, but yes.
I know, right? Why am I counting? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that promotion, and what did it feel like when you found out you were being promoted, and how has that changed your relationships with maybe some of your peers that now are reporting to you?
Sure. So a couple of things. One is that I have to say that Chief O'Toole, when she promoted me, she was very eloquent, and she came to me, she talked to me about some of her expectations. She really wants to be a reformer, a change agent, still has a healthy respect for the officers, but really wanted to make sure, and she knows that my values are in alignment with hers in terms of making sure that policing is a respectable, honorable profession, that we're treating people with justice and equality. And so she really wanted me to partner with her and be a support to her. And I felt very honored to have that role. It's not like she made it overnight. She knew me for a few months ahead of time, and it came as a surprise. But I told her I was willing to take it on and to work with her while we worked to bring our agency to be a national leader in this role. I think it's a good thing in many ways that I came up through the department. I started here in the East Precinct. I worked as an officer and a DARE officer and a sergeant in public information and watch commander in gangs, narcotics, and that helped me to understand the profession, helped me to learn about people, and helped me to build relationships internally. And where that helps is because I'm pretty straightforward, and what that means for me is that they know if I'm making decisions or I'm doing things, whether they agree with it or not, I'm doing it from the perspective of what's best for the agency.
Talk to us a little bit about who has motivated you. Like, who is your person that you
Yeah,
look back on as
right.
inspiration?
Well, not to sound like a cliche, but you know, all your grounding starts at home, you know, and with your family life and the values that you get from your parents. My parents instilled hard work, determination, you know, being resilient because not everything goes your way, you know, and also not talking back because my parents didn't have any room for that, you know. But they taught us, they instilled those values in us, and those are values you carry for a lifetime. That's why it's so important that we work with our young people so that whatever we're teaching them, whatever they're learning, they're going to carry that for a lifetime. So that's where it started with me. Also, I was involved in sports. I ran track. I played soccer. All that teamwork, team building, learning your role on a team. Sometimes you're the star, sometimes you're not. How you adjust to that, how you work together for that common goal of trying to get a win. And if you don't get the win, how you deal with those disappointments when they occur. So that sort of formed me at a young age. And then I went into the military. Came onto the department. That also had an impact on, again, team building, working with people from all over the country, from different backgrounds, different educational levels. All of that helps frame your perception of people, you know, and how you deal with people, and how you gain those interpersonal skills that are so important to moving forward.
Well, one of her roles being in the cast of the NBC series Grimm, Abby Dillon has graced many stages, from plays, TV shows, to elected official for SAG-AFTRA.
I've been an actress my whole life and a dancer, and I started in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I'm from. And then I went to college did a professional actor training program at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and got more classical trained there. And then went right to New York. And I was working at a company called the Circle Repertory Theater, which was a very well-known theater, off-Broadway company. And I thought, really, that's what I wanted to do new plays. I love speaking the words of new playwrights. And I thought I'd be in the West Village living in Manhattan my whole life. And then life just takes different courses all the time.
Very nice. And so you're also a board member for SAG-AFTRA, right? And then you're also a chair, you said a co-chairman of SAG-Indy?
So I became involved with the union. Because with the Screen Actors Guild, when all the work from Washington State went to Canada. And it happened during a commercial strike here, an actor's strike, and they found Canada. It's very close by, it's really clean, they have a cheap workforce, and so much of the work went from LA. Instead of stopping here, or in Portland, it went to Vancouver. So I came back from having children, and I wondered where my work went. And I found out it went to Canada, so I became politically involved to find out how to get it back. And that's what then when I started getting involved, I started dealing with workers' rights, with how many hours you're working on a set, with all kinds of issues that are so important for actors and for our local actors. And then I became elected to the national board, connecting actors from all around the country and what our issues are. And they're even though it's different from where you live, it's all about, again, how you're treated on set, what your rights are, especially for younger people. When you're just starting out, it's very difficult to stand up, to have a voice against people, your bosses. And what the union does is make those protections obvious so that you just call your union. And it's like, I'm having trouble doing this. I got treated like this on a set, especially as a young woman or a young man. Yeah. The union has your back.
When you're thinking about people who are in any arts field, if that's journalism or acting, like how do you stay afloat financially when you're...
Well, you always have to do what you have to do, and I think there's a stigma of taking other jobs, especially if you live outside the major markets, New York, LA, Chicago, you should always, especially as a young person, always do what you need to do to stay afloat monetarily, taking whatever job you can. If you're good with kids, if you're, find a flexible job. Working as a barista, that's okay when you're young. You've got to be financially solvent. There are many people, our young people especially, feel that they're going to make it in some big way. No, you're never going to do that. Like 0.002% of people ever do that in sports, in whatever arena.
Victor is a beautiful piece of art and an amazing story to watch unfold. From advocacy to modeling to the White House are just a few accolades in Victor's resume.
I think social media is very powerful. And
I agree.
Yes, and so I would use social media to promote things about health equity, social justice, advocacy issues, or if I were to do anything that is related. So for example, if I were to do fashion shows and things like that, I'm very selective about what I do, not just for the money. And obviously I like fashion, but I will make a intentional request and figure out whether that runway or fashion show can be something for domestic violence and or to do some education around it. So I think that is really a way that we can integrate arts, fashion with charity, philanthropy, and advocacy. In the general public, perceive fashion as a very shiny, shallow industry. It can be, but I think that there are also ways to change that perception, which is something that I'm really making efforts to do.
Why are you so passionate about those areas?
I think domestic violence is just one area that I'm very passionate about. I think in general, as a people of color, I always tell people that I have all the elements working against me. I'm Southeast Asian, I'm gay, and then can be mistaken as female, but not necessarily a bad thing. And then the other thing that I think is also, those elements, in general, even if it's just fit into one category, just as a racial minority, navigating the system is already more challenging. And then from those, but then I have all those elements that I just mentioned that are working against me. So I have more empathy towards people, vulnerable communities that face challenges such as domestic violence, mental health, substance use disorder issues. So I'm coming from a place that I understand what those issues look like, and it makes me passionate about why I want to do social work. I became an androgynous model by accident 3 years ago when I was accidentally mistaken as female on a photo shoot, and then the rest is history.
And so you brought up androgynous. Can you explain what that means? A lot of people don't necessarily know what that word means.
So I think the term androgynous is probably more commonly known in the fashion industry. For instance, you have female models that models as male or male as female. And I really see the future of fashion is going to be very gender neutral. So in a sense, androgynous to me is also a form of art that it doesn't need to have a gender identity attached to it.
So I know you said you were being mistaken as a female model, and so how did that feel?
Actually, it was very interesting. To me, it just came across almost naturally, and I didn't think that I can make it a career because I was just doing it for fun. But that I think sometimes in life, you do not plan about things, and accidents happen for the reasons, and then it just somehow works out until today, and that was 3 years ago.
Women in media is an important role for the engagement of how we tell our stories and how we communicate to the world at large. I find it interesting, women in media who translate over to women in politics. This is true for the next powerhouse leader, Susan Hutchison.
I took mostly print courses when I was in college, and I went to a great journalism school, the University of Florida. But, I graduated into a recession, like so many people have done in the last half decade. And the jobs were scarce. And furthermore, I was needing to move close to where my fiance lived. After much job hunting, I got a job working for a company that was shutting down. It was a scenic and wildlife attraction, and they needed me to be a receptionist in this process of shutting down this attraction. I would call it a total dead-end job.
Oh yeah.
And yet, it turned out, I learned a couple days into the job that we were owned by American Broadcasting Company, ABC. Anyway, my first move with my husband after we were married was to Hawaii. That was the duty station.
Very nice.
And I went looking for work, and I decided to go to the ABC affiliate. Why not? I had my little ABC pen, and I showed up, and I had all my portfolio from college of all this stuff I had written for newspaper and so forth. And he took a look at that, and I had done a lot of work in sports. And when I showed up with this portfolio of articles, he said, "I'd like to start you as a sportscaster." And so I started as a weekend sportscaster at the ABC affiliate.
Oh.
And of course, I didn't have a clue what I was doing as far as the camera and the teleprompter and so forth, but I did know sports. And so he handed me a stack of wire copy. This was my screen test. A stack of wire copy, and he said, "Make me a sportscast." Well, it was early January, and nothing is going on on this
Oh, yeah.
particular day,
Oh, yes.
except baseball trades. And the baseball trades happened to be with a team that I knew really well. It was Cincinnati Reds. And so it was simple for me. I wrote up this sportscast and was sure to include the Cincinnati Reds and what was going on with their organization. And then I had to deliver this sportscast. And my boss-to-be came out of the control room. He said, "That was impressive." And I'm thinking, what was impressive? And he said, "You knew all those names. You knew how to pronounce them." And he gave me the job, and that's how I got started. And I did sports for about 9 months, and then they moved me to the news side. And then I got recruited to Seattle as a newscaster, news anchor. And 25 years later, I had a long and wonderful career.
Leader, advocate, journalist, politician, and so much more. Ruth Perez is nothing short of a woman of courage and grace. She moved to the States by herself for a better career and has made her entire family proud with her list of accomplishments.
As you know, as the first Hispanic elected official elected in Renton, and every day I learned something new about this position. And one of the things that I didn't expect is those faces when I go to schools, or those of the Latina girls that give me the look, and I can tell, or they tell me, if you can do it, I can do it. I didn't expect that. And you know what? I feel that my job has been accomplished because I am inspiring other women. And this is what it's about. This is what it's about. We should inspire each other. Like you are inspiring me right now. You are an inspiration, you know? So women should stick together for these reasons, because we are powerful when we are together, working together for these reasons.
Talk to us about that experience from transitioning from Mexico to the States, and how you would inspire other women to make that transition.
Yeah, for me, at the beginning was a lot of excitement because everything was new, and I came here to do my master's degree. I came here to study. So I always thought I'm gonna go back to Mexico in 2 years. I mean, I never thought that I was going to stay here. And I was really prepared for the cultural shock. But to be honest with you, I didn't do a lot of things that I could have done with the potential that I had, because I always was afraid of my English was not good enough. I always thought my English had to be perfect to apply for certain positions. I always thought that I was going to be criticized, I was not going to be accepted, I was going to be rejected. And that stopped me for applying for so many things that probably would have an opportunity to do it. Even when I applied for the position as a council member, I had so many fears. I hesitated for so long that I didn't have the courage. I wish I would have more confidence 15 years ago, you know, to say, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be fine.
How did you transition out of that part of, like you said, feeling like you didn't have courage, or feeling like you couldn't do it, or the way you speak, and how did you get over that to be where you are today?
I learned that make mistakes is part of being a human.
Yeah.
And also I learned to laugh about my mistakes. I understood that I am part of a diverse culture. I understand that inclusive and diversity is part of who we are. So we have to welcome and understand what being a multicultural society means. So that was part of my job, you know, acceptance more than anything. So I had to start by accepting myself.
She's a leader for the Supreme Court and beyond. Her leadership is not one-dimensional. Asian and Latino American justice, 11th woman ever to serve. Meet Justice Mary Yu. You have been a trailblazer in so many different areas in the justice system. in your life as a woman, as a leader, and as a political leader. And so in particular, I just want to know, like, where do you get the energy and the passion to be able to continue to move forward in 2016, where we still have organizations that are against LGBT and that are against political parties that are against the justice of equality and inclusion? Like, how do you continue to be just as you and continue to push the envelope like you do?
Well, it's funny because when you say trailblazer, I feel like you're talking about somebody else and not me. And it's because, I haven't set out in life to be a trailblazer. It really has been being at the right place at the right time and having the opportunity to be successful. I look back at my whole life, and that's really what it's been. I have had good mentors, I've had opportunities, and the only thing that I might have is the tenacity to walk through the door when that opportunity exists and not to be afraid to do so. When I think about the divisiveness in society in terms of people being resistant to a particular group or inclusivity, for me, it's not about them. It really is, how do we somehow continue to sustain the values that created this country in the first instance? When you think about the founders and the purpose of our union really was to say there must be a place on this earth where there is individual liberty and individual freedom and respect for all, regardless of the differences. And I think those values are values that we have really tried to sustain throughout our history. There's always going to be people who say, no, not you, only us, and us means whoever looks like me. But throughout our history, I think those principles have stretched us, and even if there has to be a response that not everybody is comfortable with, and that's under the law or through civil disobedience, I think within each one of us there's a desire to secure the rights of everybody. We're never going to be that perfect union until everybody is included, till everybody has the opportunity to participate in the society fully.
So share with us a time that a mentor has been there for you and helped you be able to continue to move forward with the things that you're doing.
Well, it's so funny. The person probably who was most influential in my life was a high school teacher. And it's because I grew up in the inner city of Chicago. I grew up in an immigrant family, so I'm first generation American, and my parents were just working people and didn't have a vision about me going to college because that just wasn't something a girl did in those days. But this teacher really provided an opportunity for me for the first time to think about even going to college. It just was not on my radar screen or our family's radar screen. So when I look and I think about somebody who really made a difference in my life and set me on a path, it was that high school teacher, Joan Finnegan, who intervened and said, Mary, you should think about going to college, and then mentored me in terms of the applications and convincing my parents that I should do this. Throughout my life, there have been people like that.
If you want to talk to that 2020 workforce that you already work with anyway, what would you share with them about being able to rise to whatever the highest levels of whatever their destiny is? What would you say to them?
I think I'd say, believe in yourself, number one. Each one of us has a voice within us, and we have to find the courage in order to speak out, not only for our own rights, but for those of others. And then when we recognize the fact that there are systems that are broken, I think each one of us has a duty and responsibility to reform that institution. I can speak to criminal justice reform, and I can tell you, I can't do this by myself. I need your help. I need the help of young people. I need the help of college students. I need the help of lawyers. If we're really going to talk about systemic reform and being inclusive, it's something that we all have to do together.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. If I can leave you with one thing, it is to remember those qualities you have that make you unique from everyone else, to nurture your talents and invest into yourself while remembering those that have invested into you. Until next time, remember to never stop discovering you.